might just do mini quilts.
Small pieces, you know, you can document your travels that way. Just make a small block from somewhere that you've been.
Okay, easy, sister. I'm trying to figure out how to do a 1/4-inch seam.
Which is a good place to start.
I'm Shalane, this is Dean, and we are GrassRoots Living.
About to see the world in action, what we can be, like with no
Good morning, friends. We are so excited that you are with us again today. We're actually at the National Quilt Museum in Paducah, Kentucky. That's right, we actually left Missouri for a little bit. We're in Kentucky and we're stoked to be here, and this is Becky. And she is going to take us on a little tour today of the museum, so you guys get to see that. We're hoping that you'll get to come here in person, but if you don't, you can enjoy this video. So we have lots of questions for her, and let's get started. So first of all, let me ask Becky really quick a couple things before we even enter the museum. First of all, are you a quilter?
I am a quilter, and I'm the director of education, so I get to do a lot of the fun things.
Oh, nice.
Not just talking about the quilts, but quilting and teaching other people how to quilt and sharing a love for that.
Perfect. So is that why you got chosen for this?
Yes. Pretty much.
Plus she has a nice smile, and so that's fabulous. Okay, so what do we expect? Like, what should we expect when we get here?
For now, it's a self-guided tour, so when you come in, you'll just come right up to the front desk and you can purchase admission tickets. Typically, we tell people about 45 minutes to an hour is what to expect, but of course, like any other museum, if you're going to read all of the text, if you want to sit and linger with the pieces, which of course we encourage you to do because these quilts are amazing and the detail is exquisite, so we want you to come and be able to spend some time, maybe go out for lunch, come back in, wander through and really kind of soak in all of the quilts. There's usually probably a good 150 plus quilts to see at any given time when you come. We change our exhibits out, so there's always neat things to see, and then of course we do have a gift shop, so once you're done you can find some really fun handcrafted items, whether it's quilt specific or just artisan made things as well, so lots of good things.
Well, I could actually stand here and talk to Becky for a long time, but let's walk and talk because we just entered. We haven't been in yet, so I know you guys are excited to see the quilts. We're excited, so let's go in there. I'll keep asking Becky some questions and we'll enjoy the quilts. Let's go.
So once you come to the Quilt Museum, we have a lot of quilts on exhibit. We have a lot of quilts in our collection. We number about 660 at this point to our museum collection. So we do continue to gain quilts mostly through donation from the artist or someone who owns the artwork. So we are contemporary in that we collect nothing earlier than 1980 to our collection. So we're 1980 through present day, kind of in our mission to honor the work of today's quilter. Sometimes we bring in older quilts, antiques, vintage quilts through the traveling exhibits, but we're main focus is that contemporary aspect. We're still adding and building on those quilt traditions, but they're doing them in new ways and innovative ways and just really creative expressions in each of the quilts that we have.
All right, can you tell us about this one right here? This one caught my eye.
Yeah, so this is actually one of our newer acquisitions that has just recently come into the collection, so good eye on spotting something fun and lively.
Yeah, but I'm dying to touch it, which I know is a big no-no, but so I'm not gonna. But I want to.
It's exactly. Quilts are so tactile, but when we come to the museum, we do ask everybody not to touch the quilts. This quilt is by Kathy Erickson, and it's called Friendship Flower, and it's a modern twist on a Baltimore album style quilt. And so that heart and hand motif was used a lot in Baltimore album blocks, and sometimes people would sign them or use them as kind of like album signatures, maybe quilts to gift for weddings or someone moving away, things like that. And when you get up close, you can see things, some names and messages written in them. She had her quilt friends in her quilt guild sign those. So again, carrying those traditions from the past, but into something that's fresh and kind of a modern take or a modern version of that traditional method. Kind of floral feathered wreaths that come through.
And even down to these little
beads that she's added in. To add a little bit of sparkle, some different thread colors that pop up in there to add a little variety. So she's put a lot of detail even into just that background space, which is why we want you to get close enough to see those stitches, but not close enough to touch.
Well, that is gorgeous. So thank you, Kathy, for doing this gorgeous quilt for us to enjoy. Yeah, and quilting is so much about stories, we've learned.
Yes.
And so I would think sometimes you see a quilt, well, and this is what we all do, right? We see a quilt and we love it because it attaches to something in our lives, right? The quilt somehow connects and tells
Just,
a story,
it's
our
art.
own story.
It's art. That's how art speaks to you,
right.
whether it's the color
Right.
or just, sometimes you don't even know why it speaks to you. It's just, you just do.
Yeah.
And it,
That's incredible.
I know, that just looks painted.
Yeah.
It just looks like a painting.
we can talk about it.
Yeah, this,
We can talk about
this,
it.
our
Made out all the
flag
quilts,
was still
but
there, 2011, by
Melinda
Melinda.
This
Melinda,
quilt
my
speaks
goodness.
to a lot of people, as you can
Yes.
imagine why. And Melinda works with this really great method that she does, kind of this raw edge applique. And so where you're seeing all these different colors in the clouds, these are different pieces of fabric that she's cutting out, layering them, just like we talked about with the hands on the previous quilt, those
Yes.
machine quilting. So when you get up close, you're going to see all of these different lines. Here we go from white to light blue. There are 4 different shades of blue in this section of fabric and of thread, you know, popping in. She's changing up some of her, the swirls in the design in her quilting and changing those colors, layering yellows on top of yellows and then into the blues to really kind of blend all of those colors. So when you get up close, you can really see kind of those building blocks of it, but as you're stepping back, you can really just catch the overall effect of this flag that comes together. And as we talked about, every quilt having a story, Melinda made this quilt when her son joined the Marines, and it was kind of a way to deal with her emotions and her love for him and her pride in what he was doing, but also just kind of that worry as a parent and going into something different. But she's also dedicated it to all military families and people.
Well, Melinda, thank you for creating this. This is gorgeous. I know it's early. We just stepped in. We haven't even seen everything, not even close. Man, if you can make it here. For one thing, we've got shadows going on. I saw the shadow of our camera here on the quilt and the lighting. I mean, it just doesn't do it justice, right? So, man, if you can make it here. Absolutely.
Absolutely. If you like art, you
Yeah.
know, you're, like I said, you're going to find something for everyone.
Yeah.
And be surprised by what that is
Right.
and what it is that strikes you about the quilts here.
Yeah.
This is Pattern Fusion number 18, Motherboard 9 by Arturo Alonzo Sandoval, and he's from Kentucky. And this one, you might notice it's got a little bit different materials. It's a little bit shinier, a little bit more reflective. And when you get up close to this piece, you're noticing that he's using a lot of different types of materials. You're not going to see fabric right away or right off that top layer. He's using recycled car mylar, automotive reflective materials, these kind of holographic materials. He's also using old library microfilm to come through. So you can, you know, see things in here that they were, you know, disposing of and pulling kind of these upcycled pieces. And so it's really fun. So it is stitched. It is layered up the way a quilt would be. It's not necessarily fabric, but it is a really interesting way of expressing what is a quilt, you know. And these are quilts on loan to us from the 9/11 Museum and Memorial in New York.
This is the one I've been waiting for. I knew that this was coming. I have mixed feelings actually about seeing it. I don't know if that sounds way too dramatic, but I'm excited to see these quilts. But yeah,
They're packed with a lot of emotions.
of emotion
for
yeah.
everybody.
So tell
Even
us-
if you don't think you're going to have that, or visitors coming through that.
Right.
Again, as art, you're able to capture all of these moments in time, whether it's based off a historical event or just that emotion that comes with it, good and bad. And so these
Because we all
quilts-
know where we were 9/11. We all have that.
Yeah,
Right.
everyone has that story. For us, especially this year with the 20th anniversary,
Right.
we've, you know, it's been great to be able to share it here. These quilts don't travel very often from the museum, so we were very honored to have them and be able to show them, but also to help educate kind of those next generations who weren't born yet or
Yeah.
don't have that memory of the actual event. This is a way to kind of learn about it in a different way, or kind of express some of that, or feel some of that emotion, or get them curious about it. Sometimes it's seeing the art and then you go home and Google, what is this about, and what did that mean, and what was all of this detail for, you know, to get that history and that detail.
Right.
So this is the National Tribute Quilt, and it is in 6 panels. And this was put together, started as a project from 4 women in Pennsylvania, kind of wanting to create a quilt to honor everyone who had been killed in the attacks that day, and kind of in those moments, and to kind of also honor one of their co-workers' sons had been in the towers that day and had died. So kind of a personal connection, but also just the full scope, you know, connection. And quilters, a lot of times when you have weddings, when you have tragic events, when you have funerals, you know, they want to do something. People want to do something to help to express. And the way quilters do that is by quilting, whether it's making blocks or memory quilts or kind of organizing these efforts. So these 4 women started this, and they brought in blocks from all around the country and several international helpers as well. And each of the squares in this quilt has the name of one of the victims. Yeah, so this will be the flight, and then each square is going to have a specific name and memory in there. Some of them, you can see they're just the names kind of just embroidered in. Some of them have, you know, other details that go together, little embellishments that are added to it, and some that are using headlines and digital printouts of events and kind of photos. This quilt Witnesses has a lot of text and photos and captures from news footage, so all in little chunks coming through, but all from photo transfers from the news coverage that day. So it's kind of a So these are quilts from the museum's collection again, and this small area we put together, it's a mini exhibit called Stitched in All Sizes. And this is something Laura, our registrar and collections manager, curated. And it's something that she's always kind of dreamed about doing, is pairing a larger quilt with a mini quilt from our collection. So we do have miniatures, and they're usually out on exhibit on their own, but this is a really fun way to pair them together and find ways that they're similar or different, or like this pairing is made by 2 separate artists. This is the larger. These are 2 quilts made by 2 different artists.
Oh, okay.
The mini quilt here, Waves and Bubbles by Doris Mcmanus, is about 12 inches square. And you can see she's got some different colored threads in there to kind of capture those bubbles and to tack kind of these pleated aspects to get that 3D kind of quality with it. And then Reflection number 3 by Bryar, Fowler, Gentry is the larger piece that we've paired. And it's got that same kind of technique, these kind of pleated points, edges that she is tacking down in different sections to get that movement in there. So, and then increase that movement by adding all of the piecing in these different shades around the outer edge. So your eye is constantly roaming around the quilt looking for connections and details, and when you come across it left to right, when you step back from it, people see different things in the design of the quilt. So it's really fun to pair these 2 pieces that are using similar kind of styles, but completely different artists, completely different colors and sizes of quilts.
How are we not supposed to touch this?
So sometimes it's based, again, similar style. This is a Baltimore album style quilt. So all these intricate details. This quilt is entirely done by hand. This is With You by Miyuki Hamaba, one of our international artists. And so she's cut out each of these shapes, each of these petals and details and all these little dots around the edges, turn the edges under, and then stitch them down by hand onto her background. And then she's hand quilted it. All of these grid lines, this is all hand quilting, and then hand embroidered details as well.
Oh my goodness.
Go with it. So it can be really experimental.
Or if you're like us and you live in a 17-foot travel trailer,
Yeah.
we might just do mini quilts.
Small pieces, you know, you can document your travels that way. Just make a small block from somewhere that you've been.
Okay, easy, sister. I'm trying to figure out how to do a 1/4-inch seam.
Which is a good place to start. I didn't say it had to be super complicated, but you know, you can just make a small piece.
I love that.
And you're in a small space. That way you're not trying to wrestle it around, and storage as well, but also your fabric. You don't need always as much fabric sometimes for those smaller pieces.
Well, and you're
to go
right,
with it.
because that's such a good idea. Some of our viewers suggested the other day we had a video of Glacier National Park, or maybe it was the Kootenai Falls. It was a lot of really gorgeous rocks in this beautiful clear water. I think it was Kootenai Falls. And somebody said, ooh, you should
you can make a quilt.
Do a quilt of that.
Yeah.
And then somebody, mentioned too of the Glacier National Park. They said, ooh, do a quilt with that. I was like, oh, everybody's so creative. And I'm like, okay. But like you said, these people didn't do this the minute they started.
No,
These-
they've made
these
a lot of
artists-
quilts where they had to
Right.
learn, just like you were going to learn how to do a 1/4 seam and keep that straight, they're going to learn how to seam rip when they mess up. Everybody has to do that.
Right.
That's what we teach with our kid camps and our programs and things that.
I've got my eye going over here. I can't stop staring at this one over here. Now, I know people love this one, of course. It's so fabulous. But
Lots of
being the
detail.
outdoorsy girl that I am, I'm completely in love with this one over here.
Also a crowd favorite.
Yes.
Say that about a lot of quilts.
Yeah.
And these pieces are both by Pat Durbin. So she's one of the pairings where she's made both the large and the small
Okay.
to come through. And you can tell that they're kind of based with photos and based off of real places and being out in nature to go through. The larger one is called Forest Walk, and then the smaller piece is Day in the Forest. Pat lives out in California, out where the redwoods are, and out
the
in
redwoods in California,
out in
yeah.
Eureka area, I believe, and so kind of those state parks and going for a hike, going for a walk. This is one of those quilts that everybody just wants to walk right into the quilt, up this
Yes.
pathway, and kind of see what's beyond the
Yes.
trees as you go through. And so she's used a lot of different colors to kind of capture that sunlight coming across the quilt, to really get that sense of you're being out in nature and get people excited to go with it. So it's one of my favorites too,
Yes, I love this.
to come through. And then when you get up close, you start noticing some little details. So we've got some little bear cubs coming through the trees.
Oh, look at the bear cubs.
Up here, we have some skunks down at the bottom,
Oh, look.
kind of tucked in. There is a baby deer
Oh,
and
so
a
now-
ladybug.
Now it's a scavenger hunt. Ooh, what's her name again?
Pat Durbin.
Pat. Good job, Pat. I want to chill with Pat. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Wait, is this painted?
Digital fabric printings. She's hand dyed some of the fabrics. She's inked it, and then fabric and thread kind of stitching. So
Oh my
yes.
goodness. Yes,
A little bit.
yeah.
Fabric dyes and kind of getting those shades of color in the fabric itself. Some quilters can't find what they want in the stores, so they will dye their own fabrics or paint them or bleach them and pull color out of whatever it is that they need to do to get it to be exactly what they're picturing
That's what I do to my hair.
to go through. So this exhibit is Primal Forces Earth by SAQA. SAQA stands for Studio Art Quilt Associates, and they are a global organization, so there are quilts from different countries, and including the US, in this exhibit. This is the first of a 3-part series of this Primal Forces series, and this is premiering here at the museum. It's here until January 11th, so you have plenty of time to come see these quilts, and then in a couple years we'll get the next installment, which is Wind, and then a couple years after that we'll get Fire. All of the quilts here are representing or themed around Earth.
Oh, that reminds me of Antelope Canyon.
Yeah.
And is this from that same exhibit? Is this a different exhibit?
This
than
is all the
one?
same, this Primal Forces Earth.
Okay, so
this
that's
whole
all
room.
of this. Okay.
So all these orange labels are
Okay.
part of this. So again, another piece that's quilted, but doesn't always seem like a quilt on first go. This is by Stephanie Nordland. It's called Sonoran Spring. And she's got this fabulous dress, this outfit to kind of capture the seasons and some different aspects of nature and the detail, but she's got all of this quilted in, kind of this patchwork style and kind of this sculptured dress shape to go with it. Recently, quilted garments have picked up again in popularity. So quilted coats, quilted jackets, quilted pants. So this little corner up here is our miniature gallery. So this is our Oh Wow miniature collection, named because a lot of times early on people would just be like, wow, these are amazing. That was their reaction to it. So miniatures are typically 24 inches on a side or less, but they are just as intricate, just as detailed as larger quilts. And
Okay, so we have been super lucky because we called ahead and we asked if we could, please do this. So in making this little video for our viewers, we have been able to have this personal conversation with you, which has been so amazing and fabulous. But what about other people when they come in? If you're not super busy,
So if you're just coming to visit the museum on any given day and you come in, you purchase your ticket, you come into the galleries, we usually have a docent in the galleries. And so they're here, volunteers that are wanting to share their love of quilts with visitors as well. So once you're here, you're free to ask questions. Sometimes it depends on how busy we are. If we're doing other things, then they might be, bouncing from group to group or kind of answering questions for other people. But we do our best to to, really give everyone a good experience while they're here and to answer the questions that we can, that they have about quilts, because everybody, wants to know more about what they're looking at. So if you're just
So people are starting to filter in, so we're gonna have to shut it down. We could be here for hours. Every quilt is so amazing. Becky has been so amazing to share her knowledge with us and her enthusiasm for quilts and the quilts here and just quilting in general and the art that
It's
is
been a
here.
joy. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We have loved this so much. We really encourage you to come here if you can, Missouri, to the one in Hamilton if you can, or one near you. You were saying that there's several all over the country, so get out there and check them out. Thank you so much for coming with us today to the National Quilt Museum here in Paducah, and we will see you guys on the next one.
I wonder how come the sky sometimes hides behind the clouds. Maybe it's just like me, a little bit scared of heights. Why does the rain always keep on pouring down when it's gray outside? It really makes me wonder.